progress from 2024 and plans and proposals for 2025. Stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, good evening everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Now, this is the Friday after Christmas, the Friday the 27th, and it is now time for my end of year roundup and sort of plans, if you like, for next year. So you can see there's Piccadilly Station. I've got the Midland Pullman running. I am kind of milking that one at the minute. And as a bit of a change, there's a pacer. A bit of an unusual sight on the layout these days, but nevertheless, they're still running. So what did I achieve this past year? Well, clearly one of the first things that I did manage to do last year was to get the mill finished. I did have to watch last year's video to find out what I did achieve last year, but the mill, I think the building was done, but these buildings weren't there. None of the outside parts were there or anything like that. Certainly this section wasn't done, the chimney wasn't done, and these ramps certainly weren't done, and all these gardens weren't done, and all the foliage, etc, etc, etc. So all of that was completed, along with the modification of this area here, in the sense that this was reconnected. It has come undone at the tracks here, but again, that's just a case of slotting it in. But this has now been modified into a separate lift out unit. This lifts out. I'll be honest with you, it still needs connecting electrically. The wires are still down there and they haven't been connected as yet. That doesn't mean they won't be. It just means they've not been done yet. But it's all on the cards. So at one point I will get back to doing that. But the next part as well, as you can see, these parts here and this lift out section. And as I just sort of pan round, it's not ever so clear around here, but all of that around there. And this has really helped. As you can see, the trees at New Mills are still in good condition. So all of this was replaced. This area here was completed. And like I said, all these was replaced. All this foliage here was replaced. So it's actually looking a lot more respectable than what it did before. Now, let's move on to the other section over there. Well, obviously, the next section to be completed was this area here. And I finished off that bit in there. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it, with this piece of walling. This particular portal here was missing. So there's the tunnel portal down there. That was added. And that was added along with all of this around here. All of this was completed. New back seam gone in. And all these sections here are removable along with all the gantries. And then also all of that. And then it did sit for quite a while. And then eventually I managed to get the water pouring when it warmed up, and the water on the mill, which you can't see right now, but I showed you in the previous clips if you want to go back and look. But all of that. And then these bridges here, the viaduct, representing Goit Vale Bridge. I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest. I might have got that wrong. And then this was my own creation, totally made up, based on a bridge near Darlington. So I quite like that. So I thought it'd be nice to have my own touch on there somehow. And then obviously the line was all connected up. This area here was pushed back slightly sharper turn here, but that meant I could then push this track ready for Glossop. As you can see, the line was there, and that was for the far edge of the track. So the track ran along here before. So I've pushed it back probably just over an inch, which has made a lot of difference. And then the last thing I completed in this area, obviously, was Hadfield. Oh, there's that section there. So that's working quite nicely. And then not forgetting this bit here, there, and the stand there and the stand over there. Well, for those of you who've been with me for a little while will realise that my attention's been split this year as well. So been having to make my own trains. Now you might think, well, why? The reason is because I can't buy these. This is the 323 and I'll show you the other one in a minute. They are quite synonymous with the North and particularly Manchester Piccadilly as running out on the Woodhead line. So I have a choice to make them or not to make one. Dapple are going to make a double O gauge version of this, but to be honest, that's not really an awful lot of help to me for an N gauge layout, as you can appreciate. So I thought I'll have a go and it'll either work or it won't work. Now, I've made this model probably 2-3 months ago, maybe a little bit more than that, and it's okay. The idea was that I 3D printed parts of it and then used the Cricut machine to make the body sides down, as you can appreciate, and then water slide transfers, as I've done many, many times, to put the livery on. Now, the train runs, and you'll have seen that in videos, but sometimes it can be a bit stuttery, I'm not going to lie to you, and sometimes it just continually stops on points. And so obviously there is some kind of issue with the connection from one bogie to another. So I think this train does need a stay alive, and one of those AE stay alives with a plug-in to the decoder would be a good idea. I've used the second one elsewhere, so obviously I need to get some more at some point, but that won't be just yet, I'm afraid. Now, to make this train move, as this was my first one, I thought I'll try using an already existing chassis, which would be a good idea if the chassis is DCC ready. However, the one I chose, I thought I could convert it without any issues, but it proved to be an almost impossible task, purely because it kept shorting out. So I decided to replace the metal split chassis with 3D printed parts, and it does work now, as you've seen, but as I've also said, it is quite stuttery and does tend to stop from time to time. The other issue with it is that I think it needs more weight in all of the vehicles, purely because one of the two end vehicles, I'm not sure which, does tend to derail a little bit, which could be a back-to-back issue. I need to investigate that, but certainly in the centre car, more weight would help bond it to the track better and therefore increase the electrical pickup. But it's something I'm working on, I'm perfecting. It's the first one I've made, and you know, you learn so much from that. And I will plan to make another one, but maybe do it slightly differently the next time. Now onto the second train. As you can see here, we've got the Trans-Pennine Express class 185, and this train is so much more reliable and more successful than the 323. And I think one of the main reasons for that is because I used the motor from a class 350 and did put the stay alive on it, and it just runs so much better. When you take the centre car off the track, you've probably got between 8 and 10 seconds of extra running with no extra power going into it. So that does make a massive difference. I have had minor issues with this derailing, but nowhere as much as I have with that one. So I think on the whole, this I've learnt loads from building the first one, and I will be at some point this year having another go at making another one of each, if not 3 of these. I don't know at the moment. We'll see how it goes. You'll notice that I've also took my previous 156. I bought a scrapper, if you like, a non-runner, and managed to convert that into a dummy. So you probably wouldn't notice. It doesn't have lights, so I put both of those vehicles into the centre. So the 2 vehicles that do have lights are on the outside, and that one runs fairly well. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. again, it does derail a little bit. And lastly, on this particular section, you'll see there's the Class 350, the second one to be put into the London North Western Railway livery. Now, you might notice there are 3 vehicles on that particular unit, and then the other train goes off there. And that is because the motor unit has been removed for the time being. It's because I've got to find a chassis, an already DCC chassis that I can put into it to make it run. And that's got to be a double bogied chassis. The one for the 170 is a lot longer than this. And I have experimented by making a shorter version. But again, I end up in the same issues as what I did with the Class 323. So I think I've got a unit in mind, but again, I'll just have to wait until I can either find one that's cheap enough and take it from there. But hopefully the one I'm hoping to get will just slot in the bottom and it just make it run. It's got to pull that train at the back there, which is a complete dummy, if you remember. So all of that at the moment is a dummy train, and the power unit is downstairs. One bogie was not strong enough to pull the whole train, unfortunately, but that's the way life is, isn't it? Anyway, let's move on. So this will be on the cards for this coming year, as will this area down here. And this has been sort of in the offing for a couple of 2-3 months, really, to be honest. So what am I going to do here? Well, first of all, I will continue with this same type of slope. That will probably start somewhere about here. I'll explain why in a minute. And then come round and finish at that point just there. And the reason for that is because it's not realistic to Piccadilly, but I have to create an area which is a compromise. I'm sure you can understand that. There's only so much of this I can model before it disappears into countryside, and I'm not that far off when I get to this point here. This will be very heavily treed. There'll be a lot of foliage down here off the slope, and that will continue in this area here. So the idea being is that you cannot see Glossop from here. What I am proposing then is a road coming through here, kind of running alongside the tracks and then back in. There will be some more industrial units in the same sort of vein as this. I'll have to pick out what I want to do and all sorts of different things like that. I may open it up and put some of the arches up as units. I'm not sure that would have happened under a soiled ceiling. I don't know. I mean, what I mean by this, all soil and grass and foliage, I don't know. I'll have to investigate, but that is generally the idea of what I'm thinking, and then have a fence running all the way along there like that. This side, it is basically going to be either a print, kind of like that, but then carried on, so it might be a print come painting. That section will be put back in, placed in, so I can still lift this off, this board, painted all along here, and then it will just be 3D printed sections which are quite flat and then stuck to the inside of there. There is a building which I want to model, which will go along the top there, and I'll just create a wall inside there, so it looks like the building has got some kind of entrance into it. I did notice that there's been a Tesco's put over the top of a bridge, and I think the railway line underneath is part of the service line to serve the Tesco's. I don't know where that is. I just saw it on a news report. Some of you may know what I'm talking about, but it'll be that kind of thing. And then hopefully this area here will start to look a little bit more like the station approach. Now, if I get that done, great, hallelujah, that would be fantastic. But there are a couple of other things that I really want to do. So let's go to have a look at those now. Hopefully I can time this with the HST, but you'll notice there are 2 lines running down the side there for platforms 13 and 14. Now, if I follow you around with the HST, hopefully everything will become clear. And you'll notice it goes from 4 lines down to 3, and the HST is going down the middle of the lines. And yes, there is a 4th line there, but at the moment that's just a disused siding. So thinking about it, what I would really like to do is have 4 lines running. Now, you might be saying to me, John, this is a little bit late in the day to be thinking about altering the track plan in such a dramatic way. Well, I think I can do it, to be honest. It won't be just yet, but those are the 2 lines that you can see the HSTs coming in on. But if I take those 2 lines with no points, well, I'll explain in a minute, and they join up with these 2 lines, and then these 2 lines come out and they go further over and run down the side there, because these 2 lines will have to shift across to accommodate this. But then 2 lines running around there, through the tunnel, 2 extra lines coming round the back there to join up with platforms 13 and 14. Now, there will need to be some jiggery-pokery down at the end of platform 13 and 14 for 14 to sort of scoot in a bit to avoid collision with this line here, this outer line there. But by removing points and things like that, I reckon I might be able to do it. It is one of those plans that it may work, it may not work, and I've only just had the thought in this last few weeks where I've been seeing other people's layouts, and there's multiple trains running, and to be honest, I think that a layout of this size, I mean, it's not massive, but it's end gauge. I think I could probably get 4 trains running, plus a 5th one going up and then back down here and off towards Dinting and Glossop. I think that will be just, potentially 5 trains running will just be amazing. So that's my proposal for that. Now, I'll tell you this next bit, or some of it anyway. I'm going to keep the big secret. But I will be taking out those 2 lines, those lines going into the back of the carriage shed. That's the only clue you're going to get, I'm afraid. But the carriage shed, if I do it this year, and it may be too much, so it'll either be this year or next year, is due for a major overhaul. And when I say major, I mean major. And that's as much as you're going to get from me at the moment. So it's a little bit like in the last video when I spoke about the wheels. Those, you can have a guess at what you might be thinking on planning for that. Again, if you feel you know what's happening with the wheels, there have been a few people to make some suggestions. But all will be revealed soon, but this might be a while. I have to be honest. It might be a while. What I can show you, which I'm hoping to keep, is that there is a hinge on there, which went in fairly soon after completing it, to be honest, with the idea, if I can put it back without tipping everything over, moving that brush, that I can tip the carriage shed up to gain access, and that's always been, and that will always be, it's resting on that bin there. So, there's things that can be done. As we just watched the HST coming round, and please do feel, if you'd like to make any suggestions, please do feel free. And can't say I'm going to take everyone up, obviously, but you may have thought of something that I haven't thought of, so please do say, and that would be nice to include people in the building of the layout. But anyway, one last thing to say before anything else, and that is Happy New Year to everybody, and I will see you again very, very soon here on Piccadilly. Take care of yourself, and bye for now.